I think we left off yesterday with House Bill 950, and we got together afterwards, and there's a new um, LC number. There's a committee sub to this, LC 450099 ERS. Is that it? Okay. The changes that we made, I think there was an overwhelm. We all got sort of eat up with the season as far as a lot of the small game hunters. So I think to ease some of that, the way I've gone back and looked at this and put it together is that we put the overall season back to the 15th, okay, or the bookends back to where it was. But we've made an exception similar to what we did with the urban deer management plan for a DMAP plan. So I think we've accomplished the same thing here. Again, going through the bill, 28, 31, this is cleanup. It's been much needed. 36 through 40, cleanup, removing these counties. There's no longer different periods of which you can hunt, these animals. Yeah, I mean that's from a time past. All right, and then the change. Let's go to line 58. So that's where we put the overall back to the 15th. Okay, and then you see the old language was put back in regarding the urban. It's actually the urban suburban, the deer management plan for our metro areas. But we've consulted with DNR, and we've added Bibb, Chatham, and Clark, and Henry counties to that list as they've continued to grow. Obviously, shooting, rifle off in Savannah somewhere is not necessarily the right thing to do. So, we're doing this archery and the further need to make sure that we're hunting. Quite frankly, just to reduce the population, because there's probably very little hunting in these counties anymore. And then what we've done on page 66, that's where we've now inserted, line 66, where we've inserted basically the same language that was at the back of the version yesterday. We've inserted the DMAP as may be appropriate, so and based solely on sound wildlife management principles. Department is authorized to develop the DMAP program. Same, language, applicable fees, may prescribe property-specific deer harvest seasons without complying with the statewide bag limit as part of the program as follows. It's putting the bookends, the closed season, okay, February 1 through September 7th. That's the closed part, and then the maximum open season for the deer under the Deer Management Assistance Program shall be the 8th through the 15th, except there may also be an extended archery only season, January 1 through the 31st. Okay, so I think this is trying to narrowly focus on what we're trying to look for parts of that southwest Georgia. And then also what we've done, if you'll look on 66 out in the right column where we've got the bag limits, we've basically left the 12 deer maximum, or a cap if you will, but we've stricken through the daily limit shall be 10 antlerless deer, 2 antlered bucks. That language, basically what we're doing by striking that language, we're giving flexibility back to DNR, okay, so that they can come in within our cap and have flexibility to manage as they see fit. We do this on the other parts of the code, so that's putting flexibility back within DNR to do this. We still got the cap, the 12 cap, but we're going to give them more flexibility so that they don't have to, if something were to happen, they don't have to come back to us and look for a code revision. 84, again, more strikeout for older language that's no longer needed within the counties. looking on page, yeah, the possum, all right, raccoon again. And then again, the 108, we talked about this yesterday, striking that language as far as the reporting of the number, the deer killed by sex, and the season. That is now online with Game Check. That's an instant, real time. So this is no longer needed. Anybody can go and see that. So we now have, data, thanks to this committee and what it's done through helping get DNR up to speed technologically wise. So, but that's the bill. Chairman Shaw, you've got any, that's what we talked about yesterday. Any comments or?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think you've done a good job of going through the changes that were recommended in the committee hearing yesterday. So I don't know if there's anything that I need to add unless DNR wants to weigh in on it.
Okay, before we do that, let's get committee. We got several committee members. All right, 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my first question would be, Georgia currently has a DMAP program. We currently have one, or we do not.
No, if I'm not mistaken, in testimony yesterday, and we'll let John elaborate, but I believe that was something that was recommended by all the subcommittees in the Whitetail Plan in our prior study. And I believe, John, if I remember correctly, you said it'd take about 1 year to get this thing stood up and completely running.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would be correct. We do not currently have a DMAP program. As mentioned yesterday, there would be two components. This statutory adjustment would be one component to being able to set up a DMAP program. The other component is staffing needs that would, I guess, need to be reflected in a budget for positions in order to deliver this, stand this program up and deliver it. And with respect to kind of where this originated, this did originate with the public. When we went through our last planning effort for the 10-year deer plan, which was done at the end of 2014, so that plan is in effect from 2015 through 2024. There were regional subcommittees, and then there were a steering committee that put that plan together. Those committees and that steering committee and those subcommittees were staffed with diverse stakeholders from the public, and this came out unanimous through those subcommittees and through the steering committee that the department explore and investigate the opportunities for a deer management assistance program.
Kind of a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. And under the current DMAP structure, because it is a deer management assistance program, a lot of that conversation was around the idea of making sure that you could, you would be able to manage deer populations, particularly high deer populations. It gave you the flexibility to increase bag limits and increase seasons in order to sufficiently manage those deer populations. That's kind of the purpose behind that. Is that not right?
That is at a property specific level.
At a property specific level. If you go in and do the biology and you say, yep, you got a very high deer density, you need to kill 50 more.
That's right. Yeah.
This is leading me to my question. Mr. Chairman, if we change that to I archery hunt only, I don't gun hunt at all for deer. I killed my first buck with a gun this year for the first time in a long time. If you limit that, DMAP offers rifle season in those property-specific locations that qualify to be extended also, right, under DMAP?
Under this new version?
No, under DMAP in other states and whatever.
Let me clarify real quick, because I want to make sure a statement that John made, or that you made, that John may have concurred with, but I want a clarification. the DMAP did not include, or at least the understanding of prior conversations, the DMAP in prior conversations before this bill, okay, did not include an element of additional seasons or added days to the existing season. I am not aware of that. The only conversation or only part in code that we had was for the urban deer management plan, which extended the archery only through 31st. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to make sure we do that. What I also further want to make sure that we clarify, and as I stated from the beginning, was in an effort to look at trying to get to a point where if it's biologically there, that some of these southwestern counties have estrus cycles that are going or later than the average, that we would do that. And I think last year, again, Chairman Shaw had a bill that wanted to just do it with archery only, and that's the reason we came back with archery only.
Right.
So,
I guess where I was going, Mr. Chairman, is if my 4,000 acre hunting club qualifies and I have a 2,800 acre contiguous piece of property, and I choose to be a part of the DMAP program, we pay our dues, they send biologists, and right now we have people killing as many as 500 deer on deer hunting permits during when they're growing crops. And they tell me that I have a very high deer density in my area. I'm not going to be able to control that density with archery only. And I think my question is bringing me back to why Section 2 under deer is archery only, to extend and give me the flexibility to harvest more deer. So I'm just trying to figure all of that out.
Let me make a statement here. I'm trying to accomplish several things. One is I'm trying to look specifically at Chairman Shaw's request from constituents in South Georgia that had requested an extension of archery only last year. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure we do it, but I'm trying to do it through a needle of the DMAP. Okay, so that it's under sound wildlife management principles that these decisions are being made. But second of all, from the chair's perspective, and I hope you will respect this, and I hope everybody on this committee will respect this, but the rifle season, extending this rifle season out while we've got other folks who are out there on joining land or whatever, is going to cause conflict. So I'm trying to do a balance here, and I hope that the committee will respect what we're doing. I am trying, of all things, we hear more deer hunting issues on this committee than any other thing. I mean, it's a family that is dominated by deer hunters. Okay, I am trying to accommodate and do something for state deer hunters here with the DMAP program, and then also looking at what was brought before, was brought to the attention last year of a small section of counties that may have a estrus cycle that runs later than the rest of the state. Okay, so that's the reason. As far as the depredation of the crops, I gotta agree with you. In a lot of cases, and I think Chairman McCall's here, there are a whole lot of depredation out there with fighting between our ag community also. But we do have depredation permits that are specifically to control that. And if we do have ag issues that are out there, those permits are there to make sure that we do, in your case, are able to control herd amounts. I will say one other thing in regards to all these deer. A lot of times what I'm hearing anecdotally is that a lot of these clubs are not shooting the number of does that they need to shoot, okay, in order to have that healthy deer herd with a plan. They're focused on just letting everything walk and grow.
But some are shooting maximum numbers, but this would give them the flexibility to increase the numbers and keep shooting them with a rifle. Well,
no. We're going to take care of your problem, because with that DMAP plan, okay? And that club that you just talked about is now going to be able to interact under a future DMAP program, and a biologist is gonna come in there and say, you have too many does, okay? So instead of just 12 does, if you've got, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, John, if you've got too many does and that's indeed your problem, they're gonna say, club, you can take X number of does off this. And quite frankly, you can start September the 7th or October, whatever the gun season comes in, and at that point, you can start shooting does according to a DMAP plan that's gonna give you the flexibility for, you know, a already long period of time to start managing your issue. And quite frankly, with the DMAP program, you're probably gonna have the biological wildlife plan and numbers there. They're gonna allow you to recognize that early and probably give to your members a good reason to go back to the club and say, guys, this is the deer management plan. So I think your issue is been taken care of, and with that issue, because if you're just waiting for an extra 15 days to kill does, one, and I'm not a wildlife biologist, but you probably should be killing does prior to rut.
Some of us that work like I do might not get to hunt, but 10 times during regular season, those few extra weeks would give me 3 more times to
Representative
hunt.
LaRicchia, let me, we can get into this debate.
Oh, I'm
okay?
not debating. I'm just simply mentioning the
you,
issue.
You are getting into debate. And if you want to get into this, the statistics, even with 2 weeks of longer season, the statistics all over the state of Georgia show that the hunters aren't going to kill any more deer, or quite frankly spend any more time in the stand, okay? Statistically, you wouldn't move the needle that much. So if we want to go there, we'll go there. I'm trying to provide some flexibility with DMAP.
With archery only.
With archery only, and that's to take care of a small issue of an extended, of what we're being told is an extended estrus cycle on does.
To give them the ability to kill a big buck, not the ability to manage populations.
It is the estrus cycle, okay?
And that's when you kill your big buck, but that doesn't manage deer population densities.
Well, the rest of the DMAP will, and that's what we're doing. So, that's the chairman has. I mean, I've tried to be as lenient with this and provide all the tools to the deer hunters, and to sit here and say that you want 15 days more rifle hunting and all. That was not the mission of also what I was trying to do for my chairman that was down there and his request. Okay. Next question, 8.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, I just want clarification on 68 through 71 or so,
Where, 68, 70.
where it says the department is authorized to develop a deer management assistance program. Is this the language that differentiates the levels?
The levels would be
Because level 3 is the only one.
yeah, but that is done by rule and reg. John, if you'll elaborate on
I
the plan.
saw no mention of levels in here. I wanted to make sure
No.
that was what gives DNR.
That gives the overall DMAP authorization, and then within the DMAP authorization, those tiers are set by the department rules or regs or board rules. It probably board would approve the regs if I had to get or approve the program.
If the program has enforceable features,
Yeah.
then those would be handled by board rule. Just general program, I guess, procedures or policy in general would just be handled by the department itself. And this
But
this
my problem-
authorizes us to set that program up.
And you're basically, I just want to make sure this authorizes y'all to go by those set features that y'all gave us yesterday.
That would be
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's once we do that, we're turning that over to them to set up the right wildlife.
And they have to meet the specific qualifications that y'all had set forth, basically went through yesterday, correct?
That would be correct. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, and
Mhm.
of course, you know, as that, what I went over becomes a formalized document, we'll keep the chairman and this committee informed and up to date on that as well.
Hold on. Who's two? Chairman McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a couple of questions, really just clarifications. One is the extending the, till January the 31st is only on those managed DMAP areas, not statewide, so my small game folks are gonna be fussing at
No,
me.
the original bill had the whole, underlying 58. It had, or the bill that was dropped was September 8th through January 31st. We've changed that back to that, and then we put in just an exception. That exception for the extended 31st season shall only be up under the DMAP exception.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking, yeah. And
So-
only on those properties.
Yeah, and only on those properties.
Okay, the other question, if I could,
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
first off, I didn't know there was a possum season. But,
Been on your farm, has it?
no, no.
Not when they're getting the chicken.
That's right, or when he shows up in the yard eating cat food, but anyway. It seems like we are doing away with one more north-south delineation line on possums and coons.
Yeah, so that, I
And that
think-
don't leave but one that we need to amend this bill for, but anyway, I've just,
We'll get to that later, my friend. We'll get to that later.
That's why I wanted to make sure, my question was, to get this season extension, it had to be in that level 3 and that's not 15.
right, okay.
Yeah.
But Mr. Chairman, on that, to his point, doesn't it also expand the potential for archery season in these urban and suburban counties through the 31st as well, according to lines 60?
For those that may not have history, the state every year, every 10 years goes through a statewide 10-year whitetail study plan. And that plan is composed of the different regions in the state of Georgia. I hope I'm saying this right, John. But it's stakeholders. It's the deer hunters out there, and they go through a very exhaustive stakeholder input process that comes up with you know, with what we're seeing here, as far as the region. So, but does that help?
Oh, yes, sir. Again, y'all all heard me say I'm
Yeah.
not a deer hunter, so I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that technically there is an extension of archery season
Well-
the 31st in both suburban and urban
Well,
counties outlined.
but part of that also plan, and I guess I go back to, or part of the whitetail study plan is identifying counties. You know, Fulton County, you can't fire a rifle in Fulton County. So what we've done here is some of these counties grow and become more urban. You can't, fire, a rifle off in these counties. We have a separate section up under here that allows for an archery only season, so that hunters there. I would encourage you, if you've not seen a picture of a buck that was killed in Sandy Springs area under this program, go ask Tom Taylor. You'll be amazed. But that allows for us, it's more of a herd management at this point because of the adaptability of the white-tailed deer and, eating everybody's petunias, and so.
You shoot them off the porch in Sandy Springs.
Well, yeah. Is that all?
Sorry,
All right.
real quick, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
You go ahead.
And
Near as
just,
many people
again,
chasing them up
clarifying
there.
question here. We are removing the particulars, inside the bag limit of 12.
Yes.
But that will then be set by rules and regs,
Yes. We're keeping a cap, saying 12 at the cap.
but letting them decide.
Let them decide, and then you do have some exceptions within the DMAP, which is the flexibility
Correct.
that they need to address Representative LaRiccia's, question about management, overcrowding, too many does, et
That's
cetera.
perfect. That's all. Thank you, sir.
All right, hold on a second here. Who's next? Roger?
I'm not gonna pretend I know what the heck y'all talking about. do have a question. I'm assuming that the reason why you want to control the rifles is because of the density of the population. I'm assuming that.
It's
make
out of
sure that you don't
respect
shoot-
for it's out of respect for those
You
counties.
don't want to shoot somebody by accident. Is that what's going on?
It's out of respect for, the state still has the local governments cannot regulate hunting and fishing. Wildlife belongs to everybody at the state level, and it's managed by DNR for hunting and fishing. They can only make rules and regs. So it's sort of a respectful, if it gets too crowded and it's obvious it would cause a problem, that's where they're trying to
Right, the
work with our
population,
local,
I'm talking
yeah.
about the human population.
Yeah,
You don't want to shoot
yeah.
somebody by accident. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's along those lines, yes.
Okay, and I guess the reason I was asking that question because I was just listening, and again, y'all can tell I'm not a hunter, but you can get killed by a bow just as easy as you get killed by a bullet. That's why I was asking the question about what's the difference.
Well, first of all, probably the range of a
I know it's-
standard, archery equipment is, people are usually shooting deer at,
So you can see what you.
oh, you're at 30 and 40 yards is usually probably what the typical maximum shot is. I would say in Whitetail in Georgia is 30 or 40 yards, probably maximum. Out west where it's open, you could have longer shots, but yeah, it's trajectory, the air.
I suggest you take all your committee members on a hunt. So
Well, we may need to do that. We may need to do that to make sure everybody, again, can understand what we're voting on and what we're reading here, so.
I'd rather take them on a hunt in the middle of the night and start them
That'd be fun.
he's already had me out walking county.
Hey, all right, we'll just go ahead. Mr. Donahue, what your question?
I didn't have one.
Oh, well, you're all right.
I have never mind, no, I don't.
All right, so you're off. All right. Representative Corbett.
That must have been when Trey had his earlier.
8? Are you
Yeah,
8?
No, yeah, but
You're done?
I'm done.
Okay. All right. You can say, it's your bill.
Turn me up.
Yeah. You're up.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I just want to publicly say that, I appreciate you working with me on this. It's obviously not what I started with. Like I said in a previous meeting, I think when I started this process, I didn't realize that it was, I should have known from the past that you always get into these disagreements within our hunting community. And there's still disagreements. There's disagreements from a group and a community of hunters that I claim to be a part of that have some issues with the DMAP. But my hope is that when the department starts promulgating the rules, that you will consider making sure that there's the community out there that may not have the resources that some people have, particularly with the number of acres, type of hunting they're doing, which is rifle hunting and shotguns, buckshot, that we'll consider giving them an option, maybe in the middle category, to have some flexibility to manage their herds just like the larger tracts in terms of being able to maybe even, shoot inferior bucks. I know that we've built that flexibility in here, but I just would like to make sure that the department considers that section of the hunting community being able to participate and making that as easy as possible to facilitate that so that everybody gets a fair shot to participate in the DMAP program if they do. I don't know, you would know better than me, the department, what kind of interest you think you'll have in this. I think it'll be like most things, probably it'll take a while to catch on. But I'd just like to make sure that we consider that. And I'd also like to consider, obviously, within DMAP, once it gets going and you get a lot of, in a few years, you'll have so much more data than you've had in the past, which is obviously a good thing for the department and the community. With that new data, I think that you're gonna be able to see what we're talking about in the southwest corner of the state. And I would like for us to just keep our minds open to exploring broadening this or not based on that data in sections of the state, just like we're already doing in the urban suburban area here, where we would be able to go in and adjust that. And I know that goes away from everything that the department's kind of tried to get more uniform, but this is a very, very diverse state. You can't compare the flatwoods of southeast Georgia, coastal pines, to the mountainous areas of the state in terms of the habitat, the deer herds, everything. So I would just like to keep that in mind, that we use that data and that we not be afraid to come back in and look at this if we have scientific data to back it up. That's it.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Anyone out? Wes? You got here okay, didn't you? I heard you had a little incident. Got it solved. Got it fixed. All right. With that, what any further comments from committee? If not, what's the pleasure of the committee? Got a motion, second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, like sign. And the measure passes. So got it's 0099 ERS. We'll get these signed and appropriately handled. Our next issue is, and I spoke to you the other day, was Chairman McCall's baiting bill. What I'd like to do, and I told this committee yesterday, I didn't. With all that was going on, and yesterday I didn't. So I'm gonna do that here as we speak. What I'd like to do, and again, guys, we're gonna have time to do this. I understand that there's a little bill that got passed out of the Senate Natural Resources Committee that's probably similar to the one that Chairman McCall has got. But yeah, there's another baiting bill. We're not going to die on this hill as far as going back and debating the ethics or why this is good or why this is bad. Okay? That was debated a number of years ago. But there are some issues that I want this committee to address, and I want them to address in a very serious way. I don't want, again, I don't want to hear back anecdotal, this helps this kid do this or manage. That's not what I am. That has been hashed and gone over and done years ago. But I want to take a very serious approach to several issues that I think we, as members of the General Assembly, and quite frankly members of this committee, also need to make sure that we're aware of. One is, how many of you were here in 06? What happened in 06 that was very particular to our community, the hunting and fishing community? Anybody know? Yes? Yes?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We- No comment. We passed a constitutional amendment that protected the right to hunt and fish. Okay? So we did something that was for the benefit of all hunters and fishermen. Not just one group, and as we've heard certainly in the debate on this, on the issue of DMAP, you know, looking at one priority, we had testimony out here from you know, folks representing, you know, the hunting and fishing communities. We've had testimony from even within the community about we want to make sure priority over one over another. So I want to look at this from a perspective of, you know, the existing code and if you you know, this legislature chooses to go forward and make this baiting an issue all over Georgia, I want at least the issue to be honestly discussed about what it does from the whole community perspective, and does it put one hunting community, if you will, in a, what I would call, and many of you on other committees, a super lean position over other hunters, okay? Because just like, you know, we've testimony, we are a family of hunters. So that's one issue that I want to look at. Then the second one is, and this is a risk issue. We've talked about it in the past, but I want to make sure that before this legislature, this committee and this legislature decides to make this a statewide policy, that we go back in and we make sure that this committee does enough homework to understand what is the risk of CWD that is associated with baiting. Okay? That's all I'm asking. I'm not telling you we're going to die on a hill, but if you're going to make this decision, this legislature is going to go forth with this policy, you at least need to look at it and make sure that we understand it and we understand all the ramifications of it and the risk and what it can mean to our hunting family. So with that, I'm going to assign a subcommittee. And to be honest with you, Chairman will do this when he has time today. I had measures and 3 ways and means measures yesterday to get out, so I've also got legislation to look at, but I will send an email out today regarding the subcommittee. And we've got time. Again, we've got a Senate baiting bill that's coming over, okay? But that's... It is, there is, I want us to look at the whole issue, whether it's supplemental feeding or analyze the risk. I'm not telling you, it's just for this committee to do to make sure it understands the risk that is associated with it. That's all. I'm not trying to, again, I'm not going to die on a hill that I died on 5-6 years ago as far as, you know, going to the mat. But we are going to discuss some things and make sure that we understand the risk going forward, that if that's the decision that this committee wants to make and this legislature wants to make, it needs to make sure that it understands all of it, okay? First of all, I'm not going to sit here. You don't put me in a box about what I'm. Don't put me in a box of what I'm doing. I'm going to be fair to this committee, just like this issue of trying to help Jason. I told you what I would do, and I'll keep my word on what I'm going to do. Okay. No. Well, so I'll do an email to do that out, and we'll look at this. That being said, I'll get an email out today of the subcommittee, and we'll start some hearings and start to look at the issue. Okay. And the Senate bill's coming over, so. Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not, again, y'all know the passion by which we all as hunters and fishermen, you know, we share a passion within our family, but we'll have an honest discussion about it, and then we'll, you know, as long as we all know what's on the table with that, then, you know, we'll make a decision, you know. Okay? Promise my friend, my sweet mate. All right?
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take action on your bill from yesterday?
Yes, that's the last part that I want to do. And thank you, I've got rules. This was before y'all yesterday, and was, it was not a bill at the time. It was first read yesterday, and now it's got a bill number. It's House Bill 988, working off of LC 4408110 ER. Scott, do you want to come up real quick and I know Chairman McCall, you weren't here. You weren't here yesterday, were you? Okay, there were a few of the members weren't here. Briefly, if you will, go back over what the bill was trying to do, and I know we've got some, there's one or two issues that we may need to make, ask the committee to make an amendment to fix some, couple errors that we saw in the bill. But go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Before I talk about this, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the committee's work on the DMAP bill. I served on that on the steering committee of the Deer Study Committee that Representative Knight, Chairman Knight mentioned, and we did recommend DMAP, and I think it's a good thing for Georgia. And I appreciate Chairman Shaw bringing it up and y'all passing out the framework to get that moving. This bill that we're talking about right now, 788, it's a very simple bill.
And 988.
I'm sorry, 988.
Need a new prescription there.
I do. Thank you. Very, very simple measure that will legalize the shooting of big game during rifle season and primitive weapon season only, to allow them to be harvested with large bore air rifles, 30 caliber and up, and that's basically all it does. It's relatively newer technology, but a number of states have legalized it. I mentioned yesterday that Florida just did, and I believe Texas did a little bit before that. And this language here is very similar to what was passed in those two states. And there's a number of other states that have, I think South Carolina as well, but I know Florida and Texas are the most recent two.
Chairman McCall?
I apologize, I was in Natural Resources yesterday, but one quick question. I have good friends who have messed up in their life, and they may have gotten a felony, but they still want to hunt, they still trap as a way of making a living, but they can't use nothing but a pellet gun. Could they use this with that on their record, because it's not a firearm?
I believe the answer is yes, they
Okay.
can. I believe that, yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with it, I just was asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, bows, crossbows, muzzle loaders, air guns. You don't have to have background checks
Right.
to purchase those. So,
It's not a firearm.
so at least
That's
from the
all I
firearm
had.
side. So I assume unless there's something else out there preventing those, they could.
No, you can use it just like you use a bow during regular hunting season. Any more questions, Chairman McCall?
And just while I'm here, I just want to mention there is, since we talked yesterday, I did notice one
I tell you what,
little typo.
Before we
Wait
get to
up.
that typo,
Okay.
we still got some more questions from the committee. Representative Corbett.
Thank you, and I apologize for not being here yesterday as well. We in the same committee meetings, about 4 committees going on at one time. But what's the range on these weapons? 100 yards, 50 yards?
As I understand it, the range is inside of 100 yards.
Inside of 100.
In best case, and probably more like 70 or 80.
And my next question, what's the cost? I mean, how much?
You know, it's from what I've seen, as I've learned about these new high powered air rifles, the prices I've seen have been fairly comparable to centerfire rifles. Something in like $700-800 range on up into
Thousands.
1,000 or more. 1,500, things like that, before you put a scope on it.
Yeah, Representative Corbett, we had mentioned, and for Chairman McCall too, that and Representative Bruce that wasn't here yesterday, the original Lewis and Clark. Okay, if you take a picture of them, the rifle that they were holding was an air rifle. So that technology has literally been here forever, and they pumped up. There was a container. It wasn't obviously a scuba type
Right.
container, however, but it was high enough pressure that they could pump it up, and they could have multiple shots from an air rifle, until the pressure in that tank got down below a certain amount where they had to redo it. So the technology is been around forever, but this is an emerging industry, if you will, as far as the air guns, the technology that's there, and quite frankly, I think there's other issues or other great attributes to the air gun. So we start to look at hunter recruitment. They don't kick. Usually they're not very loud. So it's a way that we can introduce and get more recruitment also within the shooting sports. It's something that's usually, and a lot of times, Representative Bruce, indoor. You can set up indoor type ranges, and it's not, it would lend itself to that kind of shooting. In fact, our 4-H or not our 4-H, would it be under the 4-H high schools? Yeah. The pellet rifle competition. That's the type of rifles, the technology that is shooting. So there's probably some in every county. If they've got a shooting, a high school shooting team, that's the platform. Are these air rifles, and more or less you're going to see more of them on PCP. It's a pre-charged pneumatic. So, but that's a little bit of an update on the technology. Good question. Any other members?
Representative Rhodes,
What number are you, Trey?
How loud were they? And would it be fair to say if you live in a neighborhood on 10 to 15 acres, this is the perfect deer gun? I'm asking for a friend.
Sure. I'll be honest with you. I haven't had the opportunity to shoot one of these yet, but from what I've heard from people who have shot them, these rifles, and from what I've seen on the YouTube videos, the sound is about the same sound level as shooting a .22.
On the bigger bores.
Yeah, it just has a different sound, like a longer sound, but as far as like the decibel level, they say it's about like shooting a .22.
It's not subsonic,
It's supersonic. It's gonna make it
Yeah,
crack.
Some are, and some of the smaller calibers are, but I think you're starting to get back down below that 30. Yeah, that 30 for deer hunting. So.
Sounds like
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I know we do. I'm gonna need the committee real quick before we head to rules. We need to. And Paul, you're in here. We may need your help as far as what we're doing, and make sure I'm procedurally. Skip out when we need you. Skip out when we need you. No, go ahead. No. All right. You're good. We got enough, and we'll do this very quickly. Go ahead, Trey. We're all right. I think procedure. What do we need? We need to call the question, and then we need to take amendment on the amendment to the committee sub. Okay. So with that, I'm gonna call call the question and a motion and a second. So we've called a question. Any further discussion? So this would be at the time where we need to look at amending some language in here. I'm gonna let Scott, if you don't mind, point out where we're looking at the language changes.
Very, very simple type of the language in the underlying language in the bill itself is correct. Where it says, bring it to your attention where it says, line 19, if you see in the kind of there about in the middle where it says not less than 30 caliber, so we're legalizing, air weapons, air rifles, guns for 30 caliber and up, so not less than. But in the short title, somebody left off the word not, so it says less than. Follow me? So we just need to put not in the short title.
Yeah. So that would be on line 3, above, between the word of and less. So do I hear? All right. So we've got a motion for amendment. We got a second to amend that as we spoke. And on line 3, inserting the word not in between of and less. All right. right, with that amendment, all those in favor of the amendment? Aye. All right, so now we come back to the main question, which should be motion to, as amended. So we got a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, like sign. And the bill passes. So, Paul, will you draw up the amendment? And, guys, I appreciate it, and, we'll be meeting soon, guys.
Thank y'all.